Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome in to the latest edition of Tider Insider TV. As you just heard, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports with Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and we're going to get to the latest with the Darius Miles situation, that hearing held today, and obviously some news involving Brandon Miller. We'll get to that, but that's off the court news. We're going to start with on the court news. The NCAA Men's Basketball Committee revealed their top 16 seeds this past weekend, with Alabama sitting at number 1. In each of the previous bracket preview shows, most of the number 1 seeds remain at the top come Selection Sunday. We'll see if Alabama basketball can maintain that trend. They certainly showed dominance against the Georgia Bulldogs on Saturday. My goodness, Alabama. One thing we know, Rodney, Alabama doesn't lose often. When they do, and I've said this before on the show, they're going to come back with a vengeance. You know, they lost at Tennessee, and then they came out on Saturday, and for the third time this season, they beat an SEC opponent by 40 or more points. LSU by 40, Vanderbilt by 57, and now Georgia by 49, 108-59 over it's not a Georgia team that's competitive in the league, but Alabama scores over 100 points for the 5th time this season. They shot 61.9%. Miller led the team with 21 points and didn't play that many minutes. He becomes the 3rd ever freshman at UA, joining James Robinson and Colin Sexton to join 500 points as a true freshman, and he had the quickest to that 500 number. Alabama 13-1 in the SEC. All right, let me get Rodney in here. Rod, certainly based on what I've seen and based on what little bit, I'm not one of these number crunchers per se. I think certainly Alabama is deserving of that number 1 overall seed that it has right now.
Yeah, right now, certainly. I think you're exactly correct, Gary. And I think one thing you mentioned last week, going back to last week, you said with Betty Ocko out, who would step up? And we talked about Nick Pringle. I mean, what a game he had. If you look at him, his size, his athleticism, Gary, he's a guy that down the stretch, if he can continue to develop, what a force he could become.
He went for 19 and 12.
Yeah.
And, this is a guy who played a little, more than 20 minutes. He's been playing 4 or 5 minutes a game. He goes for 19 points, 12 rebounds. He missed a dunk. And he missed, I think, 4 or 5 free throws, and a couple of them were front ends. He could have easily had 25 and 12. But you're right, he's like a pogo stick. I mean, he's one of those guys, when he jumps fast, and he can come down and jump fast again. Phenomenal athlete. And you're right, that speaks to this team's depth, Rodney. All right. It doesn't make up for the loss at Tennessee. Give Tennessee a lot of credit. They had Alabama to 59 points. I didn't think anybody could do that. They did it with good defense and what might be some questionable defense, to be quite honest with you. I think that term, get up into their shooters, I'm not a fan of that, because what does that say to me? Well, if you get up into the shooter, that means you're making contact, and that really should be a foul. Tennessee fouled a lot. Some of them got called, some of them didn't. Listen, good win for them. They needed it. They got it. They clamped down on Alabama. But if Alabama meets them in the SEC tournament, they got to be better prepared for this, because there's no way in the world this team with all its offensive weapons should be held to 59 points.
You talk about the physical style of play of Tennessee. I mean, I remember the Houston game earlier this season that they talked about pregame that they were going to get really physical with Alabama. They didn't think Alabama could handle that physicality. Obviously, Tennessee felt the same way. They played that style of defense, and obviously it worked for them. So, again, interesting. It was a very aggressive style.
All right, tomorrow night, and as I said, we're going to get to the latest on the Darius Miles murder hearing. But tomorrow night, Alabama goes to South Carolina. Now, this is a South Carolina team that's not good. I think they're in the running for worst team in the league. But they did win at Kentucky, so you can't forget that. And now Alabama is going to travel to Columbia with more of this off the court stuff in their minds. You wouldn't think that this would be much of a game, but there's a lot that goes into playing a basketball game with all that's happening. Are you concerned about tomorrow night?
Well, I tell you, again, I go back to what we've talked about repeatedly about this team, how they've responded to adversity throughout the season. They've responded to these kind of games coming up, whether it's a game that they were expected to blow a team out. They didn't, they've been so even-keeled, Gary. This is a team that's played really even-keeled throughout the season. So looking at the way this team has played, I'm not really concerned about that game. Now, was I concerned about the Tennessee? That's the game I was really concerned about, the Tennessee game last week. I thought that could be a bump in the road. And as you look forward, that Texas A&M game later.
All right, yeah, A&M's got 2 losses in the league. They're still in the hunt for the SEC championship, so Bama needs to take care of business tomorrow night for sure. All right, Now it's time for Coach Talk. Alabama men's basketball coach Nate Oats said Tuesday that freshman forward Brandon Miller is not in any trouble after prosecutors revealed details of his contact with teammate Darius Miles the night of the Jamia Harris shooting in Tuscaloosa last month that resulted in her death. A hearing for Miles' capital murder charge was held today. Officers testified that Miller brought Miles the gun that another defendant, Michael Davis, allegedly used to murder Harris.
It's sad. We knew about that. I mean, you can't control everything anybody does outside of practice. Nobody knew that was going to happen. College kids are out. Brandon hasn't been in any type of trouble, nor is he in any type of trouble on this in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
I do want to say that there's been an update to Coach Oats from his press conference today at 6:24. UA Athletics released a email to the media from Coach Oats, a statement reading, quote, "I thought it was important for me to clarify the unfortunate remarks I made earlier. This entire time I've tried to be thoughtful in my words relative to this tragic incident, and my statements came across poorly. We were informed by law enforcement of other student athletes being in the vicinity, and law enforcement has repeatedly told us that no other student athletes were suspects. They were witnesses only. Our understanding is that they have all been truthful, fully truthful, and cooperative. In no way did I intend to downplay the seriousness of this situation or the tragedy of that night. My prayers continue to go out to Jamia Harris's family." All right, Rod, you and I are in the media, so I have to say we. But we, the media, sometimes, want a pound of flesh. And I'm not a lawyer. I don't attempt to say that I know a lot about the legal system. I will say this. Based on what Coach Oats said today, I don't think he was trying to be insensitive. We've talked about this before. He's a very direct speaker. You ask a question, you get an answer. I've been around him enough to know that. A lot of people don't know how to read him sometimes. Again, this is my opinion. I don't think he was trying to be insensitive. I think he was trying to narrate what he said in that statement, that he has been told from the time this incident occurred that no other student athletes, basketball players at the University of Alabama were going to be charged. And I just think that was the point that he was trying to make. I do think it came across poorly, and he has now issued an email trying to clarify a statement.
Well, a week after this incident occurred, you and I spoke, and we knew that there was a chance that there was more going to go on with Brandon Miller in terms of investigating the situation and where he was at the time. And so this is not, as Nate Oats said, this is not really a surprise. Our understanding is, I know that my understanding is, Gary, that there are no legal issues in terms of Brandon Miller at this point. So I think he summed it up really well in that email.
Yeah, Tuscaloosa Chief Deputy DA Paula Whitley told reporters today that Miller is not being charged because, quote, "there is nothing we could charge him with according to the law." End quote. Now, all right, he's not going to be charged, but obviously this is going to impact the Alabama basketball team. They've got to try to play through this. And could it, off the court, impact Miller's future? And what I mean by that is, of course, the NBA draft that's coming up this summer, he's expected to declare after his freshman season and be a top 5 pick. Could this impact that?
Well, I don't really know that because I think right now, if it stays as is, I would not think so. But I'll say this, too. You're talking about how it might impact this team. Look, they've been playing for weeks. They've known that this was going to eventually surface. So I don't think it's something that necessarily is new to them. It's just public.
Yeah, and, as we are saying, Rodney and I don't try to make assumptions based on legal issues. We're not lawyers, but he's been playing. I know there are a lot of people, again, in our line of work and fans on message boards that want to see him suspended. As Rodney said, though, Nate Oats has had all this information. I don't expect the suspension. Now, I'm not the coach, but that would be my expectation, that Alabama will go ahead and play out this season. But we will keep you up to date on the latest as this story comes to light more as the details come out. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama football adds a new senior assistant to the staff, and boys, he got a ton of experience. Also, Crimson Tide softball put off 3 wins over ranked teams in Clearwater, Florida over the weekend. Big tournament for the Tide, and they played well. And we'll also be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number right there on your screen, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUA23.com. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns right after this timeout. Well, his name is Ha-Ha, and he has a sense of humor. So much for Ha-Ha Clinton Dix easing into his new job as Alabama's football director of player development. He shared this on Twitter today, quote, "First day on the job, and I got a you-know-what chewing from Coach Saban. 1 down, $5 million to go." End quote. Clinton Dix played at Alabama from 2011 to 2013. Was a great player. Was a first-round pick by the Packers. Named to the Pro Bowl in 2016. I think he played 8 or 9 years in the league. His role here, of course, helped players develop for an NFL career and also careers outside of football. But Rodney, as we welcome you back into TITV here on WVOA 23, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, I think this speaks to. If people are worried about Nick Saban losing any intensity, softening up. If he's chewing out Ha-Ha Clinton Dix on the first day on the job, I think he means business.
He got a Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. He did. He got a Lane Kiffin. I think it shows you Nick Saban hadn't slowed down at all.
Actually, Gary, I think he's turned it up a notch.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, one way you turn it up a notch, too, is you do keep coaches on their heels a little bit. They have to know that there's a level of expectation. Nick Saban does that. He defines the job responsibilities for everybody in the organization, and he expects them to carry it out. And another way you do that is you bring in quality people. How about this? Alabama has hired Ken Whisenhunt as a senior special assistant to the head coach. This is a guy, I remember when we played tight end at Georgia Tech on that 1984.
Bill Curry.
Yeah, that's right. Beat Alabama over there. But he was a 2-time head coach in the NFL with the Titans and the Arizona Cardinals. Also the offensive coordinator when the Steelers won the Super Bowl in 2006. Last 2 seasons he's been an analyst at Penn State. He's also the father-in-law of current Alabama analyst Zach Mettenberger, so there's connection. But again, to be able to bring somebody in with this much experience at that position just speaks to what Alabama and Nick Saban are all about.
Yeah, you talked about his credentials. The Titans, the Cardinals, the Super Bowl, barely lost that Super Bowl. To Pittsburgh, but he's been at Penn State. I think you mentioned that. Gary is an offensive analyst. A lot of experience there. You talked about his connection to Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees started under him with the San Diego Chargers. So a lot of connections, a lot of familiarity. I think that's certainly good as you start to move into spring practice.
And Saban's also bringing in John McNulty, who will serve under Tommy Rees here at Alabama. He was at Notre Dame. He was at Boston College, a guy that Rees has a lot of experience with and has learned from, and he'll be on the staff too. Again,
the familiarity, Gary. They're guys that have worked together. They know what to expect from each other. I think that familiarity is something that, again, as you move towards spring practice with a new offensive staff like that, offensive coordinator, is really valuable.
Alabama football under Nick Saban always looking to get better. I love these 2 additions, particularly, again, Whisenhunt. Man, I think that is, how cool is that to have 2-time NFL head coach on your staff as a special assistant to the head coach. All right, let's get to softball. A lot of hand-wringing last week after Alabama opened with a season loss to Lehigh. But at the Clearwater Invitational, which had one of the strongest fields, Alabama went 4-1. They beat 3 ranked teams, Duke, UCF, and number 6 Florida State, and lost a close one to number 2 UCLA 5-3. Their other win was a 10-0 run rule win over Indiana. I think, Rodney, this kind of maybe will ease the fears of Alabama softball fans in regards to this team this year.
Yeah, so you're saying they might be pretty good after all.
Yeah, I still think they might be pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. Again, I understand the loss, the initial loss to Lehigh and the response and all that. A lot of high expectations this program for sure. But again, like you said, Gary, going 4-1 in that tournament, I think that's pretty impressive. And what they did against UCLA, they had an opportunity to win that game. So that's top-notch competition, number 2 team in the country. Yeah,
still really good. All right, Alabama women's basketball defeated Vanderbilt last Thursday night at home. That was the 20th win on the season. That's the first time they've had 20 wins in the regular season since 97-98. Rick Moody was the head coach. And the first time they've done it, they hadn't done it in back-to-back seasons since 98-99, and that team won one in the NCAA tournament to get to 20 wins. So a lot of good things happening with this team. They did lose on Sunday at Mississippi State. Quite frankly, got outplayed. But, Roddy, right now they still sit in the number 4 seed. Why is that important? That's the double bye in the SEC tournament. So this Alabama women's basketball team's done a lot of good things. Very good. Very good. Now they have to finish strong. Got to finish it out. Got to try to get that 4th spot. That would be a big, big help. I do think this team's headed to the NCAA tournament. Well, still to come on TITV, Andrew Pickney earns SEC honors this week on the Diamond. And coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, you can call us at 205-348-WVUA. Give us a call, or you can email us right there at that email address on your screen. We want to hear from Tider Insider Nation, and we'll do that next right here on TITV. Alabama junior outfielder Andrew Pinckney is off to a blazing start, and he's been acknowledged for it. He's been named the D1 Baseball SEC Extra Player of the Week in Alabama's series sweep of Richmond. He batted a cool 800, Rodney. Is that any good?
Pretty good.
With 8 hits, 2 RBI, and a walk, man. I mean, that's getting on base. That's doing it all. Congratulations to Andrew Pinckney. Bama won again today over Tennessee Tech, 7-3. They are 4-0 on the season. All right, welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. We got phone calls to get to, and leading us off is Jonathan, just down Highway 69 in Moundville. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
How's it going, Gary and Rodney?
Doing great, man.
Yeah, I was wanting to know who y'all think might be the starting quarterback for Alabama this year.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Getting that question a lot on my radio show. I know you're getting it a lot on your board. In fact, we discussed it on my radio show yesterday. Again, I'll let you say who you think. At this point, Jonathan, I'm not trying to avoid your question. I'm just going to give you my honest answer. I don't know. I don't. I think they've got 4 quarterbacks, 2 returnees, and 2 true freshmen that are both enrolled, and I think they're going to have an honest to good quarterback competition. And by that first game in September, I think Nick Saban will go with the guy that he thinks gives him the best chance to win. That's my honest answer.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Look, quick breakdown. I mean, obviously, Jalen Milroe has some experience a little bit. He's incredibly gifted athletically. Obviously, he needs to improve some, become more consistent as a passer. I think Ty Simpson has all the tools. The question is, how does he respond? I mean, again, he hasn't played. We haven't seen how he responds to it. And then you've got the 2 true freshmen, Eli Holstein, Dylan Lonergan, both very talented. They're going to go through spring practice. We'll see what they have. There's no way to predict.
Not at this point. All right, we got another quarterback question from Bob down on the Gulf Coast in Daphne. Hey, Bob, how are you?
Fine. I'm enjoying the show, fellas.
Thank you.
I couldn't hear the question, so if I repeat myself, I'm sorry. I know that Milroe is supposed to be very quick, but what are the times of the other 40 times? Simpson and Holstein, these other boys, can they move pretty well, or are they just too slow to make their presence felt unless it's passing?
All right, Bob, good question. I'll be honest with you. You're right. Milroe is extremely fast, extremely athletic. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. But Simpson, Holstein, and Lonergan, they're no slouches. I mean, all 3 of those young men, I don't know their 40 times, Rodney might, but I know all 4 of these quarterbacks are athletic quarterbacks. They can all run. They're all big, strong guys. So Alabama's blessed in that regard that all 4 of these guys, if there's not something there, they can pull it down and run it if they need to.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Ty Simpson's very athletic. He can throw the ball well on the run, moves extremely well, strong arm, all of those things. You look at Eli Holstein. He's a guy at 6'4", 225 pounds. Gary, he put up incredible numbers at the Elite 11 competition in terms of his size, his speed. He's a 4'6" guy at that size. He's got great quickness, 4.19 shuttle run. That's amazing for a player his size. Then Lonergan's an outstanding athlete as well. He's a great baseball player, a guy that some people may think's a draft pick. So, yeah, these guys are really athletic, and they can do the things with mobility that he's referring to.
It's going to be one heck of a quarterback competition. All right, we're going to get to the timeout. We'll come back with our email question of the day and more of your phone calls. Again, the phone number, 205-348-9882. TITV rolls on from Tuscaloosa on a Tuesday night. Stay with us. And welcome back to TITV. Alabama gymnastics had a big meet this past Friday night over in Athens. This, you remember, Rodney, one time the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Gym Dogs was the premier rivalry in collegiate gymnastics. Alabama got the win. So the Crimson Tide looking really strong in gymnastics this season, and always good to beat the Georgia Gym Dogs. That's a great rivalry. All right, welcome back into the program with Rodney Orr. I am Gary Harris, and it's time for our email question of the day, which is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. It's from Marshall over in Moody. Will Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele be on the sidelines? It's a great question, Marshall. It has varied under Nick Saban. I think, honestly, Nick Saban sits down with each coordinator and they confer about it, Rob. But I think ultimately he wants them to be where they feel most comfortable. You know, Bill O'Brien was in the box. Sarkisian and Kiffin were on the sideline.
You know, and also I think sometimes Nick Saban, that depends on the quarterback. When you're talking offensive coordinator, you've got a young quarterback. If you've got a quarterback coach who's the offensive coordinator like Tommy Rees is, you sometimes want him on the sideline with that quarterback so they can talk face-to-face throughout the game. You know, we'll just have to see. Kevin Steele, I think he's worked both.
He has. He's been in both.
So Again, he's a very experienced guy, and they'll work that out.
Yeah, still, I think at Auburn he was up in the box.
I think he was, yes.
And I think at Alabama that first year he might have been in the box, but he's also, as you said, been on the sidelines too. Great question. All right, let's get to one more email question if we've got time for it, unless we got a phone call. What do you want me to do? Do an email here? All right, let's go to an email here, Rod. And this is from Tom in Montgomery. What happened to linebacker Ian Jackson? Great question, Tom. And you're from Montgomery. That's probably why you're interested. He's from Prattville. Nothing. He redshirted his first season. This past season, no playing time. But he's a guy that they're high on.
Yeah, just mop up type things, some special teams, that type of thing, but nothing significant. But yeah, I mean, again, a young player, a guy that's developing. This spring will be really big for Ian Jackson. Yeah,
he's got ability now. He can bring it. Alabama's got a lot of talented young linebackers who, much like quarterback, that's a position that's looking for some playing time from some guys on the roster. All right, that is going to do it for our phone calls and our emails. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. We're going to come back and wrap up this edition of TITV. We'll be back right after this. Really happy for A.J. McCarron. He played in the NFL 8 seasons, but never really got a chance to play regularly. He said, heck, man, I'll play in the XFL. Didn't do much the whole game, but down the stretch, he made all the plays, including that game-winning throw to Austin Prohl, whose dad, Ricky Prohl, was a great wide receiver and on that St. Louis staff. St. Louis Battlehawks beat San Antonio 18-15. A.J. had his little boys there. He said afterwards, I want them to see me play. How cool is that, Rod?
That's great.
Pretty good stuff. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of TITV. A reminder that you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 here on WVUA 23 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you tonight with highlights of Alabama's baseball win today, 7-3 over Tennessee Tech, or 7-4, I should say. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night. We'll talk to you again next week on Tighter Insider Television.